Shawnee, aka Total Makeup Junkie 101. So today I have a video on some new Morphe eyeshadow palettes. You guys know that I am really a big fan of Morphe eyeshadow palettes, so much so that I actually purchased these myself. I know that that's practically unheard of on YouTube because most of the people you guys see talking about Morphe get it sent to them for free. I am not a Morphe affiliate. I have never been a Morphe affiliate, and I purchase all of my Morphe products with my own money. Now, I did hear about Morphe from other YouTubers, and I kind of just fell into the hype over it. I do think that their palettes, their eyeshadow palettes in particular, are really good. The quality is really good, but it is not comparable to something like MAC eyeshadows or even Makeup Geek eyeshadows. The only reason that I say that is because all of Morphe makeup is made in China and it's all private label, and the quality of the ingredients that goes into the shadows aren't necessarily the best, but on the flip side, they are very, very affordable for the amount of product you're getting. Today, I'm going to be jumping in and talking about the new 12 pan Morphe palettes. You guys are all probably very familiar with the large 35 pan Morphe palettes. Well, Morphe recently came out with a couple different shades of these 12 pan palettes. Maybe if you aren't necessarily a makeup artist and don't want to carry that much product with you, maybe you travel a lot or something like that, these little palettes are really, really sleek, portable, cute, travel friendly. They don't contain a mirror up at the top, so if that's something that bothers you, just keep that in mind. These are only $14.99 a piece, which is a really, really great price for 12 shadows. Now, I have 4 different 12 pan palettes that Morphe has. At the time I'm filming this video, these are the only 4 varieties that they have, but Morphe does release palettes really quickly. So by the time I get this video up, there may be a new color variation available. So now we're gonna go ahead and talk about each of the 4 palettes individually, and I will go ahead and show you guys full palette swatches so you can see the entire palette swatched on my skin tone. This is the first palette we're gonna talk about. This is the 12S palette. The S stands for Soul of Summer. And you guys can see the variety of colors in this palette. They're all very, very shimmery, and they're all very earth toned. And you can see just by the swatches of this palette, it is absolutely beautiful. I will say the warmer tones towards the bottom of the palette or towards the end of my swatches are definitely my favorite. The second to last color and the third to last color are absolutely beautiful. This palette in particular, I could highly recommend. The only thing I would say is that it isn't necessarily a well-rounded palette because there aren't any matte shades. So you don't have any good transition colors, highlight colors, dark outer corner or liner colors. So you may want to pull in some other singles or another palette you have to use alongside this one. Now the next palette, which I think has been getting the most hype, simply because people have been saying this is like the 35O palette, which we all know is pretty much impossible to get your hands on. Except this is a smaller, more compact version of it. This one is the 12NB palette, and NB stands for Natural Beauty. You guys can see just by looking at the palette, this one definitely has more of a well-rounded color scheme in the sense that they are all neutral, but you're getting a lot of matte shades in this palette. And here you guys can see just by the swatches of it, there are a lot of light colors. There are a couple of darker colors. I would say this palette is definitely lacking in the darker color scheme. While this palette as a whole has been getting a lot of hype, I would definitely say it's probably the most useful for people with light to medium skin. I feel like if you have a skin tone like mine, which is definitely more of the medium tan to deep skin tone, there isn't a good variety. A lot of these matte browns end up looking the same, and a lot of these lighter colors also end up looking the same. So at the end of the day, yes, you are technically getting 12 different colors, but if you have more of a tan or deep complexion, it'll really look like you have 5 or 6 different colors. Now this next palette is definitely the one I would say is the most unique in terms of color selection. This one is the 12Z palette, and Z stands for Zodiac Smoky Eye. And you guys can see what a unique color variety you have. A lot of the shades in here are very metallic-y, but it does balance out with some matte colors as well. You guys can see just by the swatches, these shades definitely pop, especially against my skin tone. There are lots of nice poppy metallic colors, but even the matte shades, they're not patchy, they're not chunky, they're not sheer. You have that nice matte, rich, emeraldy teal color. That matte black at the end of the row is absolutely gorgeous. I definitely think the color selection in this palette is incredibly unique, especially since you can go so many different ways with this palette. You can absolutely get a very classic smoky eye using the matte black and the silver. You can go more of like a neutrally smoky eye if you use this kind of taupey brown color. But you can also incorporate in different colors like the purples, the greens, the blues. This is a really, really nice palette. And then on to the last palette, which I would definitely say is my least favorite out of all 4, and it's the one that definitely makes a punch. This one is the 12P palette, and P stands for Picasso. And I can definitely see why this one does stand for Picasso, because do you see the colors that are in here? This is almost like an artist color wheel. You can see by the swatches that a lot of these colors have a really, really nice pop against the skin. I did not use any primer for any of these swatches, so you can really get a true essence of the color right out of the pan. All of the shades in this entire palette are all matte. They are all really, really punchy. I would personally say this palette is definitely more of a hit or miss, especially in terms of the quality of the different shades. Some of them are stellar. Some of them I just don't feel like are really worth the effort you would have to put in to get them to pop against your skin. But if you maybe haven't invested in something like the Urban Decay Electric palette or the Kat Von D Mi Vida Loca Remix palette she released for the holidays, and you wanted a palette that had some bright colors but you weren't willing to shell out that much money on a high-end palette, you may really like this one. Now in terms of my overall thoughts on these 12 pan palettes, I do think that they're very, very comparable to the 35 pan palettes. Of course, they're just smaller, much easier to travel with, easier to store. If you guys weren't sure about the Morphe quality or if you really would like it, I would definitely say you should give these a shot. I do think these are very, very reflective of the quality that Morphe puts out in most of their eyeshadow palettes. Most of the colors are kind of hit and miss, but the ones that are a hit are amazing. Now, one thing I just want you guys to keep in mind is that if you have very, very sensitive skin or sensitive eyes, definitely be careful because the ingredients in this palette aren't really the best. These are loaded with talc, mineral oil, and parabens. So if those are things that you're kind of, you know, leery about, just be warned. Overall, I do think these palettes are worth the price, especially if you want to expand your makeup collection or your eyeshadow collection very quickly and at a very, very affordable price. But I don't feel like the quality of these is anything close to a lot of my favorite eyeshadows. Makeup Forever Artist shadows, my MAC shadows, my Makeup Geek shadows. These aren't really that similar. But for those of you guys who are eyeshadow beginners, or for those of you guys who want to expand your eyeshadow collection and maybe try some unique or different colors, I think the price is right. So that's pretty much all I have to say on these Morphe palettes. I hope you guys enjoyed my Morphe video. If you guys haven't had a chance to watch the Morphe video I did on the 35 pan palettes, I will be sure to put that video link in the description box down below for you. So be sure to check that out if you guys want to know what I think of the larger Morphe palette. So that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in my next video on Monday. I'll see you then. Bye! A lot of these colors, as beautiful as they look in the pan, some of them just don't pop. At least as much as I love Gwen Stefani, I definitely don't feel like this palette as a whole